She once saved his life in a brutal blizzard. His dying grandmother begged him to forget her. His heart refused.
Subscribe to Wild Sky Stories. Turn on the bell icon so you do not miss any new video.
The dust rose in angry clouds behind Clara Bennett's wagon as she drove toward the old homestead, her jaw set tight enough to crack walnuts. She had received word from her mother 3 days ago, carried by a young rider who looked frightened just delivering the message. Now she understood why. Her son, Caleb, had refused. After everything their family had sacrificed, after all the years of building the Bennett name into something respectable in this harsh Wyoming territory, he had looked his dying grandmother in the eye and told her no. Clara found him in the barn, brushing down his mare with the same gentle strokes he had used since he was a boy of 12. Now, at 2008, Caleb had grown into a man who resembled his late father so completely that it sometimes stopped Clara's heart mid-beat. The same strong shoulders, the same quiet way of moving through the world, the same stubborn streak that ran deeper than any river. "You know why I've come," Clara said, not asking. Caleb didn't turn around. "I figured you would. Your grandmother is dying, Caleb. She has weeks, maybe less. Her one wish, her only wish, is to see you married before she passes, married to someone who can help this family, who can bring resources and standing. Margaret Holloway comes from the finest family in the territory. Her father owns half the railroad shares between here and Denver. This marriage would secure everything we've built. I don't love Margaret Holloway, Ma." Clara felt the anger rise in her chest like a wildfire catching dry brush. "Love? You speak to me of love? I married your father for love, and where did that leave me? Widowed at 32, raising a child alone, working until my hands bled to keep this ranch alive. Love doesn't put food on tables. Love doesn't pay debts when the cattle die. Love doesn't protect you when the world turns cold." Caleb finally turned, and Clara saw something in his eyes she hadn't noticed before. A light, a warmth that seemed to glow from somewhere deep within him. It was a look she recognized, one she had seen in her own mirror 30 years ago. "Who is she?" Clara asked, her voice suddenly quiet. "Her name is Elena Vasquez." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush stone. "Helen, a Vasquez, the daughter of Miguel Vasquez, the sheep farmer who had settled in the valley 3 years ago. A Mexican family with nothing but their animals and their pride. A family that the respectable ranchers of the territory barely acknowledged, let alone welcomed. Your grandmother will never accept this, Clara finally said. I know. The town will talk. Let them, you would throw everything for this woman. Everything your grandfather built with his bare hands. Everything I've fought to preserve. Caleb set down the brush and walked toward his mother, taking her weathered hands in his own. Ma, I need you to understand something. Elena isn't just some woman I've taken a fancy to. She saved my life. Clara's breath caught. What are you talking about? 3 months AG. Oh, during that blizzard that took the Harrison boys. I was caught out in the north pasture when my horse threw me, broke my leg in 2 places. I would have frozen to death out there, Ma. The snow was coming down so thick I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. But Elena found me. She was out looking for a stray lamb and she found me instead. Caleb's voice grew thick with emotion as he conti. Nude. She couldn't carry me, couldn't ride for help in that storm. So she stayed with me for 2 days, and 2 nights she kept me alive. She built a shelter from branches and her own coat. She gave me water when I burned with fever. She talked to me through the darkness when I wanted to give up. She sang to me in Spanish, songs her mother taught her, songs about hope and love and survival. And when the storm finally broke, She walked 7 miles through snow up to her waist to bring back help. Clara felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she fought them back. "You never told me any of this, because I knew how you would react. I knew you would say I was just grateful that I was confusing gratitude for love. But Ma, in those 2 days, I saw the truest heart I have ever known. Elena could have left me. She could have saved herself, but she stayed, and she fought for my life like it was the most precious thing in the world." Clara sank down onto a hay bale, suddenly feeling all of her 54 years pressing against her bones. "And you love her? More than I knew a person could love. Does she feel the same?" Caleb's face softened into a smile that made him look like a boy again. "She tried to push me away at first, told me I was too good for her, that I deserved someone from my own world. Can you imagine? The woman who saved my life, who showed me what courage really looks like, telling me she wasn't good enough. I had to convince her that the only world I want is the one with her in it." Clara sat in silence for a long moment, memories flooding through her key spring runoff. She remembered being young, remembered the way her heart had raced when Thomas Bennett first looked at her across a church social. He'd been a poor farmer's son with nothing but dreams and calloused hands. Her own mother had nearly disowned her for choosing him. But what a life they had built together. What love they had shared in their 12 years of marriage. When he died, fever, Clara thought she would never feel whole again. And in some ways she never had. "Take me to meet her," Clara said quietly. Caleb's eyes widened. "What? You heard me. If this woman means so much to you, if she's worth defying your grandmother's dying wish, then I need to see her for myself. Take me to meet Elena Vasquez." The Vasquez homestead was smaller than Clara had expected, Boo. It was immaculately kept. The fences were mended with care, the animals looked well-fed and healthy, and flowers grew in window boxes that had been painted a cheerful blue. As they rode up, a man emerged from the small house, his face guarded but not unfriendly. "Mr. Vasquez," Caleb said, dismounting and helping his mother down. "I've brought my mother to meet your daughter." Miguel Vasquez looked at Clara with eyes that had seen too much suspicion in his life. "Mrs. Bennett, you are welcome in my home." Before Clara could respond, the door opened again, and a young woman stepped out onto the porch. She was beautiful, Clara realized with a start. Not the pale, delicate beauty of the society women in town, but something stronger, something more real. Elena had dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, warm brown skin that glowed in the afternoon light, and eyes that held both gentleness and steel. "Mrs. Bennett," Elena said, her voice carrying just a trace of accent. "I have wanted to meet you for some time now." "Have you?" Clara asked, keeping her voice neutral. "Yes, I have wanted to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" Elena smiled, and Clara understood suddenly what had captured her son's heart. It was a smile that transformed her whole face, radiating warmth and sincerity. "For raising such a good man. Caleb speaks of you often, of how you taught him to be strong but also to be kind, of how you worked so hard to give him a good life. A son does not become the man Caleb is without a mother who loves him deeply." Clara felt her defenses crumbling, but she wasn't ready to surrender just yet. "He tells me you saved his life in the blizzard. I found him when he was hurt. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Clara said firmly, "not anyone. Most people would have saved themselves, especially in a storm like that. What you did required extraordinary courage." Elena shook her head. "It was not courage, Mrs. Bennett. It was love. I did not know it. Then, not fully. But I think my heart knew before my mind did. I could not leave him there any more than I could stop breathing." They talked through the afternoon and into the evening. Miguel served them coffee and the best food he had, though Clara could see it was a sacrifice for the modest household. Elena spoke of her mother, who had died during their journey north, and of her dreams of Beko. Ming, a teacher. She spoke of how the children of the Mexican workers had no school to attend, how she had started teaching them herself with what few books she could afford. As the stars began to appear in the vast Wyoming sky, Clara asked to speak with Elena alone. They walked together toward a small garden where roses struggled to bloom against all odds. "You know what you would be giving up, T. Oh, marry my son?" Clara asked. "The town will not accept you easily. There will be whispers, cruelty, doors closed in your face." "I know," Elena said softly, "and I have tried to tell Caleb that he should not sacrifice so much for me, but he will not listen. Bennett men are stubborn that way." Elena laughed, a sound like bells in the cool night air. "So I have learned." Clara was quiet for a moment, watching the young woman beside her. "You really love him, don't you?" "With everything I am," Elena replied simply. "He is my heart walking outside my body. When I am with him, I feel like I have finally found where I belong. Is that not strange? I have been searching for home my whole life, moving from place to place, never fitting anywhere. And then I found him, and I realized home is not a place at all. It is a person." Clara felt the last of her resistance melt away like snow in spring sunshine. She thought of her own mother, now lying in her bed waiting for death, holding onto a wish that she believed would secure the family's future. She thought of all the years she had spent building walls, protecting her heart, letting fear guide her decisions. And she thought of Thomas, of how he had looked at her the day they married with nothing but love and hope in his eyes. He had believed in possibilities, in taking chances, in trusting the heart over practical concerns. It was why she had loved him so desperately. "Come with me tomorrow," Clara said finally. "Come with me to meet Caleb's grandmother." Elena's face paled. "Mrs. Bennett, I do not think." "Helen Bennett, a stubborn old woman with too much pride, and not enough time left to indulge it. But she is also the woman who raised my husband to be the finest man I ever knew. I believe that somewhere in her heart, she remembers what love feels like. She just needs to be reminded." The next morning, they made the journey to the main house together. Caleb rode beside the wagon, his face tight with worry. Clara and Elena sat side by side, two women bound together by their love for the same man. Helen Bennett was propped up in her bed, her white hair spread across the pillows like a crown, her eyes still sharp despite the frailty of her body. She looked at Elena with an expression Clara could not read. "So," Helen said, her voice thin but clear, "you are the girl who has stolen my grandson's sense." Elena did not flinch. She stepped forward and took the old woman's hand gently in her own. "No, Mrs. Bennett. I am the girl who loves your grandson more than life itself. I am the girl who would die for him without hesitation. I am the girl who wants to give him children who will carry on the Bennett T name with pride, not because of money or standing, but because of love, the same love that built this family in the first place." Helen's eyes flickered to a photograph on the bedside table. It showed a young couple, faces bright with happiness. Her wedding photograph, Clara knew, taken 62 years ago when Helen had married a penniless dreamer named Robert Bennett against her family's wish. "My parents never forgave me for marrying Robert," Helen said quietly. "They died without speaking to me again. I swore I would never let that happen to my family. I swore I would protect what we had built." "But at what cost, grandmother?" Caleb asked, kneeling beside the bed. "If I marry someone I don't love, what becomes of this family? Children raised without warmth? A house without log? A life without joy? Is that really what you want for me?" Helen was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, she turned back to Elena. "Tell me about yourself, child. Tell me everything." They talked for hours. Elena told stories of her childhood in Mexico, of her father's decision to bring them to America, seeking a better life, of the hardships they had faced and the dreams they still held. Helen listened, occasionally asking questions, her face gradually softening. Finally, as the afternoon light grew golden through the windows, Helen reached out and touched Elena's face with a trembling hand. "You have good eyes," she said. "Honest eyes, eyes that have known suffering but have not grown bitter." She turned to Caleb. "You chose well, my boy. Your grandfather would have approved." Caleb's eyes filled with tears. "Grandmother, don't make a fuss. I may be dying, but I'm not dead yet, and I want to see a wedding before I go. A proper wedding, mind you, with flowers and music and every busybody in the territory invited to witness it." Let them talk. The Bennett family has never cared much for gossip anyway. 1 week later, in the small L chapel on the hill overlooking the valley, Caleb Bennett married Elena Vasquez. Helen watched from a wheelchair, her face peaceful for the first time in months. Clara stood beside her, tears streaming down her face, thinking of Thomas and how proud he would have been. As the couple exchanged their vows, promising to love each other through all of life's storms, Clara felt something shift in her heart. For years, she had built walls to protect herself and her family. But watching her son pledge his life to the woman he loved, she understood that true strength came not from walls, but from the courage to let them fall. Helen passed away 3 weeks later in her sleep, with a smile on her face, but she had lived to see her great-grandson named, to hold Elena's hand and call her granddaughter, to know that the Bennett legacy would continue not just in name, but in love. And on summer evenings, when the sun set over the Wyoming hills in shades of gold and rose, Caleb and Elena would sit on their porch watching their children play, grateful for the storm that had brought them together and the love that had kept them strong through everything that followed.